Ever since I was a child, that old house was my sanctuary, a place where every creaking floorboard held a memory. But when my family callously sold it to my sister for a pittance, dismissing my deep connection to its walls, the betrayal cut deep. Years of silent hurt transformed into a burning determination to reclaim not only the house, but the dignity of my past. With every signed document and exchanged key, I slowly began to mend the wounds that had festered for so long. The final showdown, forcing my sister to leave, was not just an eviction, but a cathartic act of defiance against a legacy built on favoritism and neglect. In restoring the weathered rooms and reviving the echo of laughter once shared, I discovered that the true power of redemption lies in reclaiming your story, one heartfelt brushstroke at a time. Ever since I was a child, the old house at the corner of Maple and 3rd held a special place in my heart. Its weathered facade and creaking wooden floors whispered tales of a bygone era, of lazy summer afternoons and winter nights spent huddled by the fire. Every brick, every faded photograph on the wall was a memory, a fragment of the life I once knew. I grew up there, playing in its sprawling backyard and listening to my mother's lullabies in the soft glow of evening light. That house was more than just a structure. It was the embodiment of my childhood dreams and the sanctuary where I found solace from a world that often seemed unkind, but life has a way of shattering illusions, and I soon discovered that the ties of blood do not always bind as tightly as one might hope. As I matured, a deep-seated resentment began to simmer within me, fueled by betrayals I had never anticipated. My family, those people I once trusted implicitly, decided to sell the house I cherished so deeply to my own sister for almost nothing. They claimed I wasn't close enough to them, that my attachment was weak and unworthy of such an emotional relic. Their words cut deeper than any knife, leaving a wound that festered over the years. It was as if my very identity had been dismissed, my memories trivialized by a cold calculus of favoritism and inheritance. I remember the day I first learned of their decision. I had returned home after an exhausting day, only to find the atmosphere in the living room charged with an unspoken tension. My parents exchanged guarded glances, their eyes hinting at secrets they weren't yet ready to reveal. In the corner sat my sister, her self-assured smile betraying a satisfaction I could hardly comprehend. In that moment, the weight of abandonment and betrayal crashed over me. I felt like an outsider in the only place I had ever truly belonged, a place where I had built my dreams. And so, a seed of determination was planted deep inside me. I vowed that one day I would reclaim not just the physical structure, but the dignity and memories it represented. For years I nursed that hurt silently, watching as my family paraded around with a smug sense of entitlement, oblivious to the quiet storm that had taken residence in my heart. Every visit to the house, now under my sister's control, was a painful reminder of the injustice. I would stand outside, hidden behind drawn curtains, as she hosted gatherings and celebrated life, the echoes of her laughter hammering home the isolation I felt. Yet, amid the sorrow, the seed of defiance grew stronger. I began planning, saving, and dreaming of the day I could reclaim what was once mine. That day came sooner than I could have imagined. After years of meticulous planning and relentless perseverance, I managed to gather enough funds to buy the house back. The transaction was more than just financial. It was a symbolic victory, a reclamation of my past, and a defiant stand against a family that had so carelessly cast me aside. Every obstacle, every bureaucratic hurdle, served as a grim reminder of the twisted web of deceit and favoritism that had defined our lives. With each signed document and exchanged key, I felt the old wounds begin to close, replaced by a fierce resolve that had been long dormant. The final day of the purchase was a cocktail of emotions, exhilaration, vindication, and a lingering sorrow for the ties that had been severed. I walked through the now familiar corridors, each step echoing with the laughter of yesteryear and the silent screams of betrayal. I could almost hear my younger self whispering words of hope, urging me to reclaim the dreams we had once nurtured. Yet the true test was yet to come, confronting my sister and forcing her out of the very home that had been my sanctuary. I arranged a meeting under the pretext of a family discussion. As the day approached, my mind swirled with conflicting emotions, memories of neglect, harsh dismissals, and the bitter sting of rejection. When she arrived on that fateful afternoon, I greeted her with a calm that belied the storm raging inside. I explained, with a measured tone that left no room for argument, that the house was no longer available for her use, that it had been returned to its rightful owner. Her eyes widened in shock and disbelief, mirroring the hurt I had carried for so long. She tried to argue, her voice trembling with a mixture of anger and despair, insisting that the house was a family legacy meant to be shared. But I remained unmoved. I had made my decision. In that moment, as I watched her reluctantly pack a few personal belongings, a profound sense of finality washed over me. It wasn't merely a physical eviction, it was the severing of the last fragile ties to a family that had forsaken me. I couldn't help but think that the universe was delivering a long-awaited reckoning, a cosmic balancing of scales for every year I had felt unwanted. Even as I stood there witnessing her departure, a part of me mourned the loss of the sister I once knew. A bond that might have been salvaged had favoritism not drawn such cruel lines. The memory of our shared childhood lingered, bittersweet and haunting, a reminder of what might have been. In the weeks that followed, I immersed myself in restoring the house to its former glory. Every brushstroke, every repair became a ritual of healing, a way of mending the deep fissures within my soul. Neighbors began to share their own recollections, stories of impromptu gatherings, heartfelt celebrations, and the simple joy of living within those walls. Slowly, the house transformed from a battleground of memories into a canvas upon which I could paint a future unburdened by past betrayals. The scars of the old wounds were still visible, etched into the very walls, but they now served as emblems of resilience, a testament to the power of the human spirit to rebuild even after profound loss. Even as the physical restoration progressed, I embarked on an inner journey of self-discovery. In the quiet solitude of long nights, as the house hummed with the gentle cadence of time, I found myself questioning everything I once took for granted about family, loyalty, and identity. I began to understand that the ties that bind us are not solely defined by blood, but by the choices we make and the strength with which we reclaim our narratives. I filled countless pages of a worn journal with reflections, recording every moment of clarity and every surge of renewed determination. In those pages, I chronicled the transformation from a wounded soul to someone who had reclaimed not just a house, but the very essence of self-worth. In the midst of my transformation, I encountered unexpected beauty. One crisp autumn morning, golden light filtered through rustling leaves and danced upon the worn floorboards, and I found myself standing by a window, awash in the soft glow of a new beginning. The house, scarred but proud, reflected the passage of time, the slow healing of deep wounds. I began to see that forgiveness was not about excusing the transgressions of others, but about freeing oneself from the chains of perpetual resentment. The act of reclaiming my home was, in essence, the act of reclaiming my life. I realized that the greatest victories are not those that exact revenge, but those that restore one's sense of identity and honor the bittersweet tapestry of memory and hope. Yet the ghost of my sister's betrayal lingered like an unyielding shadow. Our encounters, rare and fraught with tension, were laden with the weight of unspoken words and unresolved pain. There were moments when her voice, soft and trembling with regret, would reach out in a feeble attempt at reconciliation. I would listen, torn between the desire for closure and the need to protect the fortress I had built around my heart. In those fleeting moments of vulnerability, I saw the reflection of my own pain mirrored in her eyes, a silent acknowledgement that we were both victims of a larger, cruel design. This bittersweet recognition did not absolve her of past wrongs, but it added layers of complexity to our fractured relationship, underscoring the truth that family bonds are rarely black and white. As the seasons changed, so did the character of the house, and with it, my understanding of the past. I took solace in the small rituals of everyday life. A morning walk through the neighborhood, quiet evenings by the fireplace, long nights spent under a starry sky. Each day, as I labored to restore the house, I was also mending the broken parts of myself. I began inviting old friends over, filling the rooms with laughter and shared stories, allowing the house to gradually shed the heavy shroud of sorrow and adopt a new mantle of hope. With every repaired beam and freshly painted wall, the space began to echo not only with memories of loss, but also with the promise of renewal. The once bitter scars on the walls became symbols of endurance, reminders that even the deepest wounds can eventually give way to healing. Time, I learned, has a peculiar way of softening even the most painful memories. In the quiet aftermath of each day's work, I would sit in a favorite armchair, reflecting on the long and winding path that had brought me to this moment. I realized that the journey of reclaiming the house had been as much about reclaiming my soul as it was about righting a wrong. Every hardship, every betrayal, had forced me to confront the raw truths of my existence, and, in doing so, had unearthed a strength I never knew I possessed. The house, with its creaking floors and time-worn charm, had borne silent witness to my transformation. From a child who believed in fairy tales to an adult who had learned that true magic lies in the power of resilience and self-acceptance. During the long, quiet hours in the attic, while sifting through yellowed letters and faded photographs, I pieced together the fragments of a past that had once seemed irretrievably lost. Each artifact, a handwritten note, a beloved trinket, a long-forgotten keepsake, spoke volumes of the love, laughter, and pain that had defined my early years. In restoring these relics, I was not merely cleaning dust from old memories. I was reawakening parts of myself that had been buried under layers of hurt and neglect. The act of preservation became a meditation, a way to honor the complexities of a family legacy that was as flawed as it was beautiful. In the midst of the physical restoration, I began to rebuild my inner world. I took up painting and poured my turbulent emotions onto canvases that slowly filled the empty walls of one small room. With every brushstroke, I transformed anger and sorrow into vibrant splashes of color, an abstract symphony of pain transmuted into art. Neighbors and newfound friends marveled at the transformation, not just of the house, but of the man who now stood at its helm. I shared my journey on online forums and message boards, and the outpouring of support from strangers provided solace and validation. Their stories of similar betrayals and eventual triumph resonated with me, weaving a tapestry of collective resilience that made the burden of my past feel a little lighter. Even as I forged ahead, the complexities of family ties continued to haunt me. My sister's occasional calls, filled with remorse and tentative hope for reconciliation, reminded me that the wounds of betrayal do not easily heal. Yet with each conversation, I felt less compelled to reopen old wounds and more determined to define my own future on my own terms. I realized that forgiveness is not about forgetting the past, but about freeing oneself from its relentless grip. In choosing to let go of the bitterness, I discovered that the greatest act of defiance was to live fully and authentically despite the shadows that lingered. Now, as I prepare to step into a new chapter of my life, I carry with me the lessons of a journey that has tested the limits of my resilience and challenged the very core of my identity. The house, with all its imperfections and scars, is a constant reminder that the road to redemption is paved with moments of profound vulnerability and quiet strength. I have come to understand that every betrayal, every moment of abandonment, was a stepping stone on the path to self-discovery. A path that led me to realize that my worth is not defined by the opinions of others, but by the strength of my own spirit. With the past firmly behind me and the promise of a brighter tomorrow, ahead I embrace the future with a renewed sense of purpose, grateful for the journey that has brought me back home. And so, as the stars twinkle above and the night air fills with the soft murmur of distant memories, I find solace in the knowledge that no matter where life takes me, this house will always be there. A silent, steadfast witness to the enduring power of hope, resilience, and the unyielding quest for redemption. Over time, as I immersed myself in the daily tasks of restoring the house, each new project became a ritual of remembrance and renewal. I spent long hours in the attic, sifting through old boxes filled with relics of a bygone era, yellowed letters, forgotten trinkets, and photographs capturing moments of joy and sorrow. Every artifact told a story, a piece of the mosaic that was my family history. As I carefully cleaned and restored these items, I felt as though I were piecing together the shattered fragments of my past, gradually forming a clearer picture of the person I was meant to be. The physical act of restoration mirrored the internal process of healing. It was as if the house itself was emerging from the ruins of neglect to reveal its hidden beauty. I documented every step, not only for my own satisfaction, but as a testament to the transformative power of perseverance and love. My relationship with my sister, though fraught with tension, evolved in unexpected ways during this period of renovation. Initially, every encounter was charged with unspoken animosity, the air thick with memories of old grievances. Yet, as weeks turned into months, a strange calm began to settle over our interactions. There were moments when I glimpsed vulnerability in her eyes, a silent admission of the pain that our fractured family had inflicted on us both. While I never fully reconciled with the betrayal, I came to understand that our shared history was complex, woven with threads of love and resentment in equal measure. Even as I stood firm in reclaiming what was rightfully mine, I could not entirely ignore that she, too, was wounded by the same cruel circumstances that had torn our family apart. As I reflect on the long and winding path that led me back to this house, I am filled with awe at the intricate dance of fate and free will. The betrayal that once threatened to shatter me had, in the end, become the catalyst for my transformation. Every act of cruelty forced me to confront the raw truths of my existence, and in doing so, I unearthed a strength I never knew I possessed. I now stand in a place where the past and future converge, the house a monument to both pain and redemption, a place that will forever remind me that even the deepest scars can give way to hope when nurtured with resilience and the courage to reclaim one's own story.